Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Abstract Essay, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. She's the author of the book When the Universe Holds Your Hair Back, no other than Miss Katie Baker.
Thanks so much for having me.
Welcome, Miss Katie, for the second time around. And Miss Katie is my guest on Book 101 review. And today on Abstract Essay, we're going to talk about the writing process of her debut book, When the Universe Holds Your Hair Back. Can you tell us, Miss Katie?
About the book, would you like me to tell you about that?
Please.
Okay. Yeah, so I wrote When the Universe Holds Your Hair Back. It's actually chronicles, it's a memoir. It's a story about my childhood and some of the abuse that I struggled with as a child, how it impacted me as an adult, and how I healed that trauma with the use of therapeutic psychedelics.
Indeed, Miss Katie Baker, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And tell us what behind the title of your debut book.
Yeah, so I really was trying to think through. I had titled a chapter When the Universe Holds Your Hair Back because I think through this process it's really a metaphor for surrender, for letting go, for trusting that the universe can hold your hair back while you let go of all the stuff that has, taken over your life and allow for transformation. And so I really felt like I had to trust in my family that helped me along the way, and with therapists, with really the universe at large to help me with this process. It very much felt like a team effort.
Miss Kate, what was the initial spark, the moment, feeling, or idea that made you say, I have to write this book?
Well, it was kind of an interesting story. I had enjoyed writing in high school, wasn't really a writer. And so I had written some blog posts associated with my business. And I had read some of those blog posts to friends and family, and they were like, you should really turn this into a book. And I was sort of like, I don't know. I don't know if I could actually write a book. But I sent the blog post over to an author. He had written a number of books that were successful, and asked him what he thought. And so when I met with him for coffee after he had reviewed the chapters, and another writing professor, they had both indicated, like, you have something here. You should just keep writing. And so it encouraged me to just start with a chapter at a time, really, and just get a lot of feedback. I got a lot of feedback on as I was writing. I was really fortunate to have kind of a team helping me and let me know how I should change things, what could stay and what needed to go.
Miss Kate, how did you want a reader to feel upon finishing the last page?
Well, the first thing that came to mind when you asked that, what I would say, is hope. It's really kind of a tough read in the beginning because I do chronicle childhood abuse, death in the family by suicide, addiction, really some hard topics. I often tell people that are reading my book that the first half of the book is tough. However, opening that door and just being vulnerable and honest and truthful in terms of the storytelling and what transpired, then you get sort of into the middle of the book and you can see how the shift is occurring and how my life changes. And so I also chronicle that as well. But I think that no matter your age, no matter your journey, that it's never too late to heal and to find your way back to yourself.
Yes, people, it's not too late. Let's talk about the creative process and craft. What does your writing ritual look like? Do you have a specific time, place, or routine that helps you to access this kind of creative spiritual headspace?
Well, I think for this book in particular, the thing that I struggled with initially was how do I frame a book about my childhood when I moved over probably 25, 30 times. It was hard to actually capture it in chronological order because people that were giving feedback were like, how I'm really confused. And so I decided to set it up as short, basically short stories. Every chapter is its own story, so it doesn't cause confusion. And I think that that really worked for me because it allowed me the freedom to just process that portion of my life without needing to weave it in to the next chapter. And so I opted to do that. And I think I started writing on my second book, and then I'm opting to do that with that one as well. So it's like, how can I complete almost a story within a story? And so each chapter stands alone. And in terms of how I use my time, this one in particular, I was a woman on fire. I just wanted to get this out into the world. I thought it was time that we talk about the trauma, time that we talk about the impact that it has on our lives, and also about the modalities I used to heal. The second book in particular, it took me a while. Like this one came out in May and I didn't really feel like writing. I needed a little bit of a break. And now I'm excited to work on book number two, but I also want to have my life. I think the first book, when I wrote When the Universe Holds Your Hair Back, I went missing, my family says, for months. You know, I've just kind of pulled up in a room at the computer. And this next book in particular, I would rather do it as I feel drawn, and it came. Thank goodness. I didn't burn
Well,
myself out with the first book.
thank goodness, Miss Kate, you didn't burn yourself. So this feels like a book that blends genres. Is it memoir, poetry, or spiritual guide? How do you decide on its structure and form?
Yeah, I think when we, I think this one in particular is a memoir, and there is discussions in terms of how, let's say, shame, guilt, all the things that left me sort of trudging my feet along the bedroom floor every day, every morning when I woke up. However, I think that I just really wanted to introduce more spirituality in the second book because that is actually part of the process, at least for me. And so I this book in particular was the real world view of a childhood, and what it took to kind of get back home to myself, because that was a really challenging and difficult process. Me in particular, I just thought, you know what, this is how I approach life too, by the way, but I can get this done in a year. So I determined, like, I am going to do a year of healing and see what happens. And I tackled it like a full-time job, and I would not do that in hindsight, I would do that differently, but I actually wanted to almost put myself to a challenge. Like, this is not, you haven't healed from this stuff your entire life, and you're 47 and it's dragging you back. So, how can you actually make a goal of 1 year and see what can transpire within that year?
Were there any specific authors, poets, or spiritual teachers to influence the voice and tone of this book, Miss Kate?
Yeah, it was really interesting when I passed over those blogs. It was someone mentioned Anne Lamott. So I really love her voice, and so that was really a compliment. So I went back and read some of her work as I was working through my own. It's often compared to Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert, too, because although I didn't travel the world, I did go on a big old journey and had a big story to tell as well.
Big story for sure. What was the most challenging chapter or section to write and why?
Uh, I named one chapter actually to discuss the relationship with my mother and my mother's childhood. That was definitely by far the toughest chapter for me to not only read, write, and read the audiobook because I love my mom, and she had a rough childhood, and I, in turn, had a rough childhood. So it was really about the generational cycles that can impart these lasting scars on our lives. And so when I just put out a blog post today about this, but when I actually read that chapter in particular, I wasn't quite sure how she would respond. And so I was crying, which I'm not a big crier, but I was crying. I couldn't even keep it together to actually read her the chapter. And I was unsure as to what would she say when I was done reading this chapter? How would she respond? And when I was done, she said, "I think you need to tell our story. You need to put this out in the world." And so I realized that I could be brave because she also was brave. And so we've done a lot of healing together. And so it's how can I frame the humanity, the humanness in us all? So it's not just, there's some people that definitely caused major harm, and there's no way to frame their humanity, that's for sure. But with my mom in particular, she's done such great work, and I was so proud of her that that was a really tough chapter to navigate, and I think we did that pretty successfully.
Pretty successful indeed, Miss Kate. And how did you navigate writing about deeply personal experiences while also making them universal for the reader?
Yeah, so it's been really interesting the response since the book has been out about people just calling me up or approaching me or reaching out via email. I think that they oftentimes hear their story in reading my story. And so that's been really incredible in terms of opening doors for deeper conversations where it's not just asking about how's the weather. Um, the response has been encouraging because I feel like we can create a community as we navigate this process, this thing we call life that can be really hard. And so it was challenging. I thought I don't really want to go back and visit this stuff, but I spent a whole year chronicling this process, journaling through this process, and I thought, you know what? I wish I would have had a book like this when I started my journey. But I think because it discusses therapeutic psychedelics, there's a lot of fear around that. And so I thought, you know what? Because I was not able to find a story, the hope, the goal is that I share my story, that I share my experiences so that others that are having a hard time can share their own. I wanted to open a door so that we could heal together.
Definitely heal together for sure. Themes and personal journey. The title suggests a theme of divine support or surrender. How did you own understanding the concept change from the beginning at the end of writing the book?
Yeah, so I think when I started this experience, this journey, I was lost. I'm not gonna lie. Like outside appearances, I had it all together, but inside, I was struggling. Um, I didn't necessarily believe in like spirit or spirit guides or universe or God, even per se. But because I wasn't raised with that belief system, and because of my childhood, I'd sort of, I would say, lost faith. lost faith in not only myself, but anything external that would maybe raise me up. And through this process, really through the book, I understood how we are supported, and that something or someone believes in us. And as I wrote in the book, is waiting for with bated breath for us to believe in ourselves too. And as we navigate this world, I think it's really challenging to be a support system or to function if you don't find yourself worthy, if you don't find value in who you are. And so through the process, I think it was just having really no self-worth, if I'm going to be totally honest, to recognizing um, that, as the saying goes, I am a soul and I belong here. Where in the past, I struggled with that.
Miss Katie or Miss Kate, what was the most surprising self discovery you made about yourself while you're writing this book?
I think in the past that I would think, I thought that strength was really about sort of not looking at the past. I'm not going to go there. I'm too tough for that. I was taught you buck up, you just deal with your stuff, and the way you deal with it is you bury it in the backyard. And I, through this process, through this book, I understood strength to be something far greater than what my limited mind had thought strength to be. I thought strength would be just not looking at it and not dealing with it, but it was actually the strength came from being honest, looking at my stuff, which is really hard to do, um, allowing feelings, allowing growth, self exploration. That was I think oftentimes it was like I thought strength was the opposite of what this process was. And I recognize now that strength is actually how we stand, how we walk in the world, and what we're willing to face. And so overall, I would say I'm really proud of what I accomplished through this process. And I like myself as a human a lot better too.
Yes, we on Abstract Essay, proud of you, Miss Kate. Totally, totally. We are proud of you. Overcoming obstacles. Every creative project has its moment of doubt. What was yours and how did you move through it?
Yeah, I think, can I write a book? Will anyone read the book? Why am I spending so much time on this? Um, will people judge me? That was a big one. Will people judge me, judge my story, judge the way I opted to go through this healing process? And I think the scariest day for me in particular was when I was going to share the book on my personal social media, because I was so scared people are going to judge me. And there was liberation in just putting the send button out there, and definitely the response that I received since I put the book out there. So all of that was, I think we're all worried that someone will leave a bad review, will tell us that the book is horrible or, whatever. But this is my story. I have to stand in that truth. And if we're going to change the world, then we have to do something, that we believe in. And this was something that I believed in.
Definitely. And we believe in you, Miss Kate. We salute you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Let's do the finish line and beyond. What does the end feel like on a project this personal? Is it a feeling of relief, loss, or something else entirely?
Mm, I think it's actually a little bit of both. I was grateful to have it done. I self-published. I understood also that there is work ahead that I still had, I had to do the hustle because I opted to self-publish. I didn't even want to wait to put this book out there. I just wanted to get it out there in the world. But I think gratitude would be one. Gratitude for what happened and the experience of writing the book and reading the book. And yeah, all the response too. So,
Definitely. And to wrap up our discussion today, Miss Kate, now that this book is complete, what creative project is holding your hair back?
another book. That's easy to say.
Yes.
Yes, I'm going for another one, so I'll be back.
True, for sure. Please be back on Abstract Essay as well as on Book 101 Review. And let's talk about it, Ms. Kate. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your debut book?
Yeah, you can find the book on Amazon, When the Universe Holds Your Hair Back by Katie Baker, and on my website at peaceandfirehealing.com.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Kate Baker, because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Miss Katie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.